Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Adita Karkera, Chief Data Officer of the Government and Public Services Practice with Deloitte. We're collaborating with CDO Magazine in a series of interviews of government leaders. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Josh Martin, Chief Data Officer for the state of Indiana. Josh, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Specifically during COVID, it highlighted the need for data sharing. And it was easier at that time because there were multiple uh, blanket ordinances in place that allowed data sharing to happen between departments. How has that changed for you post-COVID? Of course, I understand that Indiana is situated uniquely, having the executive order and other things in place. But I wonder what else has changed for you post-COVID and how you are dealing with increased data sharing today, keeping in mind privacy, compliance, and the other aspects.
Absolutely. We were really in a beneficial position pre-COVID with our the statutory structure that we have for doing data sharing. A big thing that we noticed from executive order period to being codified was that we didn't have a good legal framework for doing data sharing efficiently. We had our standard contracting, which you can't have a legal contract between two state agencies because you can't sue each other. Um, and then we had memorandums of understanding, MOU, which were governed by financial management circulars, which are really intended to transfer funding to fund responsibilities of one agency or another, but also expired at the end of the budget year. So if you're leveraging that tool, you're talking about a whole bunch of different types of MOUs that then have to be renewed at the end of the 2-year budget. So you get a whole lot of legal overhead on front of that becomes a nightmare to manage. And that's kind of the way that we were trying to operate before our statutory language got put in. But we were fortunate enough to have a data sharing agreement piece put into our statute where we get to create the data sharing agreement framework for agencies and other entities to sign on to. So we have a standardized data sharing agreement that has all the terms that are necessary from the federal statute, from state statutes, that can create the foundation for that legal framework. Which once COVID hit, and as you mentioned, we have all of these, public health emergencies that come up and this massive need to exchange data very rapidly. We already had that underlying framework, and we saw it get pushed into place very, very quickly. And we knew that, eventually that emergency is going to be, coming to an end, and we need to see what things are going to look like going forward. As we explored our data sharing agreement and the mechanism we were working, we're fortunate to have that already in place because we don't need to go and reinvent the wheel or figure those things out. We already have the foundation in the NPH statutory language that allows us to work as an agent of the agencies. So we really become part of their team, and to leverage one legal document to handle that exchange of information from the legal standpoint. We did realize that we also need to continue to catalog all of that information that's moving everywhere. I mean, we were at the beginning building pipelines very, very quickly to be responsive, but with that, you need to document things well. You need to know what data is moving where, for how long, for what purpose, and that was something that really, in my mind, became a major issue to address during the pandemic. Is what we saw was data proficiency, data literacy globally was really, really low. People were trying to say, well, show me that one number. Let me see the one number that's important to look at. What's the one model I should be looking at for COVID? And none of the models were working. We were running multiple models every day, but there wasn't one number to look at. You have to look at a lot of different numbers. You have to be able to interpret those together. So, if I tell you I'm going to give you 10% of the money that's in my pocket, is that the last piece of information you want to know? No, you probably want to know how much money's in my pocket so you can calculate how much you're likely to get. So part of that kind of started to breed what we started thinking about as our needs are that would allow us to be more efficient, more effective in these things. Data proficiency was a primary one, so we stood up a data proficiency program to go out to all state employees to help lift everybody up, so that everybody understands that they really have a data job. No matter what you're doing, you're inputting your time into the time system so you can get paid. Everything has a data aspect. Give them the skills to be proficient in their own workspace, to understand how to read, write, argue with data, make them feel more confident in it, as well as data governance proper. I think we were data governance has kind of been there here and there. We might not have called it that or thought about it that way, but I think it's really become a huge prominent piece, not only in the public sector, but everywhere. Is if you don't have good data governance, if you're not doing good documentations, lifecycle management, thinking about your workforce and data proficiency, and all of the aspects of how you're collecting and storing and managing data and your strategy around it, how it aligns with IT and how it aligns with the business. That's such a huge need. So that was something else that came out of the whole COVID pandemics. We needed to focus on data governance as a state, as an enterprise. So we stood up a data governance council and started inviting our peers at the different agencies to become involved in that, help guide some of the work that we're doing here at MPH. Because there's really no way that I can scale my organization large enough to be able to handle the demand if we can't actually get good governance. And it just kind of stuck in my head one day is like, wow, I wouldn't have to do all this extra busy work if we actually had some good data quality control and management on the front end of things. And if we could all agree on how we store names and dates and addresses and all these things that make our life really hard because everyone's kind of been doing it in different ways, that if we could just get everybody on the same page, we wouldn't need to have a whole bunch of people that are focusing on that 80 to 85% of the data collection and cleansing and munging, when you really want to focus on doing the more interesting things, the machine learning, the artificial intelligence, the visualizing of data products. So if we can all get better at governance, if we can all get better at looking at our quality and having strategy, we can do these things a lot more efficiently. We can respond to emergencies like COVID more efficiently, more effectively, and collaborate better across the entire enterprise. So those two things really came out of responding to COVID. Is we need to get people better skills and more access to learning resources across the board, not just my group of data professionals, but being able to make sure that people can read a dashboard, navigate a dashboard, read a data visualization, consume that information to do their jobs, or else we're just creating products that don't have a lot of value to them. But then also, how do we get everybody on the same page in terms of our state strategy and our state governance? How are we going to work together to make data a real strategic asset across the state and bring that value to bear?
Josh, so you sparked my interest. You've been talking about this data proficiency initiative. I want to know more. So is that initiative, is the goal there to cater to the needs of just state employees? Or is that an initiative where it's open to other citizens?
So when we started thinking about proficiency, we looked at some of what was out there commercially available, what came with some of our data products we already had, and we're like, well, none of this really works or fits for government. Um, let's look around and see if we can find resources that might be beneficial. And we need to make these so that they're very approachable, so that people will want to go and use it. We need to make sure that we're being considerate with state employees' time. If we want people to opt in, if we want them to go and look at these things and be participants and help scale up, we need to think about that end user as we're developing these things. So we started looking around. We found a really good YouTube series from Arizona State University, which it was very approachable, short videos that talked about different components of data and data literacy. We came up with this concept of let's just push it out in a newsletter style, put it in front of the emails of all these different state employees, and they can opt in. They can go and they can click on these things. They can view a couple of short articles on different data topics that are of interest. They can watch this short video. And then we decided, well, let's do some gamification. We'll add a badging system to it. And you're doing this as an opt-in type of thing. So you're like, yeah, maybe a couple hundred people will do this. And we were kind of a victim of our own success because we didn't think about automating all of the processes of badging and issuing. And we had a lot more buy-in than what we thought. And we're over 2,000 state employees that have gotten the first level badge for their proficiency, for the proficiency program, which is just incredible. And I get so many emails from folks from different agencies just thanking me for putting this out in front of them and giving them access to these things. But none of it is proprietary information. None of it is things that can't be shared with the public. So we public faced it on our website, so anybody can go to it. Other states, our citizens here, anybody in the world can go to that website and look at the material that we've put together and structured for our state employees. They can't get a badge, but they can see everything that we've been doing. So we're being very transparent and making that available. And hopefully more folks are going to be able to leverage that resource and not have to try to develop it as we've had to.
Well, great pieces of advice, Josh. I mean, focus on the problem, leverage data as an asset, continue to find those data champions, and focus on getting your quick wins. Thank you so much for your time today, Josh. I think the audience is going to absolutely enjoy hearing your perspectives that you've shared with us today. And for everyone else who's listening, please continue to visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews and insights.
Thank you.